and you have great things on the horizon for you as well. And if you cry, I'm gonna cry. We can't do that because we're professionals, right?
Yeah,
God bless you. We're professionals. We can't do that, Tammy.
Right. Absolutely. But did we answer the question?
Okay, so the question was, how did I know, when? Okay, so it's a long story, less long, but growing up, we would all my family, like my whole family, would like go over to my Uncle Weed's house, right? And so we would watch. They would sit us down and make us all watch Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, right? So first of all, I was terrified of Thriller. I don't think I watched the entire thing of Thriller, like where he starts, the darkness falls. I never even heard that till I was good and 30, because I was always afraid of it, right? Wow. And the reason why they made us watch it is because the leading lady, which was Ola Ray, she's my cousin. So when we would get together, we would watch it, right? Because, that was the whole thing with our family. We wanted to sort of support our family. But watching her and knowing that she was the biggest pop star in the world, and I mean, even in his death, he's still the biggest pop star ever. I mean, kids and women and men, they're falling out and crying and like passing out at his shows where they have to have ambulances. So I know this is a big deal, even though I don't really understand it at the time. So I grew up watching her do her thing alongside the leading lady of Michael Jackson. So I always knew that if she can do it, I can do it. So I had it in me like, okay, she can do that. I can do that too. And so now that was what started me in. And so that's kind of how we ended up where we are.
So how long I know you said you've been in the game a long time. How long exactly?
Oh, like I said, my first time in the studio was 7. There was a girl I grew up in this neighborhood called Sun Valley. There was a girl in Sun Valley named Sheila. Sheila had pink hair. She was an artist. And so one time I used to come around to her house, just hang out with her. She was like 17 and I was every bit of 7. But she was really cool, one of those cool girls. And so she was like, well, I'm going to the studio. You want to go? I'm like, sure, let's go. So I go, she makes this song, she records it. That's back when it was DAT and cassette tape. That was that by it. And when I heard, she gave me a tape to take home. And when I heard it back, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like you could do something that's creative and then like record it and then you could hear it again. So that was enough for me. And that was a wrap from there. It was a wrap from there.
And you've been nonstop ever since.
Doing
your thing. I don't call you my shero, and I know you don't take that lightly because I truly mean that. I have told you that I have been seeing you and watching you for a long time and had long admired you before God had blessed me to meet you. So you're a big deal to me. Always have been, always will be. Now, Paris, tell me, why did you move to New York right out of high school at such an early age?
Okay. So remember I told you, I had always been in music. I was actually in high school going to the studio. I was in high school doing that. Like other kids were like going to play and I was in the studio. So at that point, I knew all the artists in St. Louis. I knew all the producers. I knew all the musicians. I knew all the studios, yet I didn't have a demo. I had never been behind the mic. I wrote my own music. I did all that, but nobody was trying to hear it, right? So then a friend of mine, Dana, her cousin came down from New York, and he heard me rap, because she was like, she can rap, let her rap. So I rapped for him, and I thought that was that, right? About 2-3 weeks later, he calls me. I didn't even give him my number. He calls me. He's like, listen, I know this is weird, but I heard you rap, and I really think you got something. I want to fly you out to New York, and let's see what you got, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. So the first time, now remember, in St. Louis, I'd never been in the studio at all. The first time I go to St. Louis, guess what studio I ended up in? Queen Bee Records in Queens, right? First time ever in the studio, right? So the second time I go to the studio, I end up in Black Hands studio, right? Black Hands is owned by Chaz Williams, God rest his soul. He was one of the American Gangsters, right? On the American Gangster series. Well, he owned this label called Black Hands. So I go in the studio for the first time and I'm looking on the wall. I see Jay-Z, I see Nas, I see all these people like Foxy, like everybody in the industry, they've recorded out of here. So I know this is a big deal, right? And so the third time I go to the studio, I go to this big studio, it's like high rise, right? And I'm standing in front of it, like, okay. So I go into the studio and then I go upstairs and guess who's recording in front of me?
Who would that be?
Naughty by Nature. Now that's back in the day. Now I know that's back in the day, but yeah. So I've kind of been around it for a very, very, very long time. And that's actually the same studio Pac got shot in front of. So, right. So how do you go from like St. Louis, nobody wants to hear it, then you go to New York and boom. And then my uncle worked for Bad Boy at the time. So he kind of washed over me. So he kind of kept my career under the reins and kept me out of trouble, right? So I was right where I needed to be.
You got quite the story.
I got a million of them.
Yeah, quite the
Like here they go.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Now I know that you're in education as well. So what are some of your greatest moments as an educator?
Ooh.
And how long have you been an educator?
A lot of people don't know this. I have been teaching for 17 years.
See, I know I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.